And welcome back to Dr. Drill's Making Motivation podcast, where it is our absolute mission to honor interesting and authentic people, to tell their stories, to put some smiles on faces, and perhaps a little fire under the asses of the masses. My friends, good morning. Today is April 30th, 2024. It is a Tuesday. It's beautiful. The sun is shining. The temps are in the 80s. And so we finally arrived into spring. And soon it will be summer, and let the good times roll. Check it out, my friends. Today I've got a good friend, a patient, and a Renaissance man of sorts. Okay, we got Doug Ross that's going to be joining us on the podcast. You see him in the foreground. He's grasping his bass. Go ahead and play a couple tunes on the bass, and welcome, Doug.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Aaron.
Tell us all about the bass to start, man. What and how you started, and then get to work.
All right. Well, I retired from teaching in all kinds of different situations, but the last 36 years I taught science, and then I thought I should have some kind of a hobby. And I went to the library and I saw this book on bonsai. I thought, wow, all those little trees. And then I read the book. I said, you can't do bonsai. You're ADD. So I have a friend that repairs violins and violas and cellos and basses, and he let me borrow a bass. He said, you can keep this as long as they want. I'd charge $125 a month, but you don't have to pay anything. So I played with this thing. I said, man, I really like this. So I told my wife, I said, this is an integrity issue. I can't keep this man's bass. So she bought it for me for Christmas. So that little piece you heard from Coltrane, that was my first favorite jazz piece. It goes like this. And it goes on and on, man. It's a minor blues, and I can get into a groove with this thing and just play.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, so tell me about you founded the Doug Ross Quartet, am I right?
Oh, it's the Doug Ross Quintet.
Quintet now. What are the players, and how did that start? So you start messing around with the bass, your wife buys you the instrument, and you like it so much you start you put a band together?
Well, yeah. So my wife, she has brought all the great things in my life. I met her in college, and we got married when she was still a senior at Bryn Mawr. And she said, we got to get out of this big house, 5-bedroom house there, which we renovated, because we're getting older. And she has a blood condition, and I have every joint's been replaced. So she talked me into coming up here to Folkways, this continuing care community. And I had a dream that I'd find some people to play with when I got up here. And I wasn't having much luck. So I joined the choir, which was kind of cool. I hadn't been in choirs since elementary school. And one day after practice, this man comes up to me, just moved in. He says, hey, you have a bass and you like jazz. Let's get together. I said, okay. He said, bring some music that you're working on. So I was working on this piece, Autumn Lee's, Cannonball Adderley's arrangement. And this guy is a really modest guy, Steve. He's a retired physics professor. And he's picked up the piano 10 years ago, but he used to play the accordion as a kid. He's very modest. He says, oh, I'm just a beginner, blah, blah, blah. So I said, look here. He said, oh, that's great, but it's in G minor. The guy transposed it in like 5 minutes, and we played together. We played for about an hour, and we had so much fun. He says, all right, we'll meet every week. I put it in my calendar. He says, we'll call it the Doug Ross Quintet. I said, Steve, why the Doug Ross Quintet? He says, because it sounds better than the Steve Harvey Quintet. And besides, you're 4 times the man I am. I said, you're full of shit. So that was it. That was it. And then we asked a guy who's like 85 years old who plays the clarinet, but he's all classical. But he came, and now he's into jazz. And then he had a friend that plays the trumpet. And this guy comes in from Green Hill. He's a retired art teacher. And then there was a woman that was in charge of the fitness center, but she retired. she's a heck of a singer. So Carolyn is our singer. Then there's this guy who saw us perform one day, and he said, "Man, I want to get involved." He used to play the saxophone. This guy, Ken, bought a brand new saxophone. He's working on building his embouchure, and he plays. And then a friend of mine, this guy, oh, you would love this guy, Aaron. I got to get him to go see you. His name is Boyce Bud.
Cool name.
He's about 84 years old. He won an Olympic gold medal in rowing in 1964 Japan Olympics.
Damn. Very impressive.
And his wife, she's out here with me. We're out planting plants and doing stuff. She says, I want you to talk to Boyce. He's sitting around the house. He's not doing enough. He used to play the trombone 20 years ago. He was good, played Dixieland. So I bugged him, and he joined, and he's working on his trombone. He's really, really good. So we have, and then I have a friend that comes in and drums once in a while. I need a regular drummer, though. But
we're going to find one for you.
You got it? Yeah, you find me a drummer?
I think so. I know a little bit of everybody, man. I might have to be able to find a drummer for you. That'd be awesome. Hey, you ever see I don't know if you were on social media at all, but there's a woman who's probably your age, and she's a former musician, music teacher, and she plays the drums, and she's really prolific on social media. You seen her? Have you seen her?
I don't know. I don't do social media. I don't even know.
We got to get you on there, man. You'd be a phenomenon.
I have 2 friends on Facebook. That's all I can handle. It's my best friend and my wife and his best.
Well, I'll get on there too, man. We're going to be Facebook friends, and then
no, I don't do Facebook. I have lots of people ask me for Facebook. No. One time I made a mistake. I clicked on one of my brother's things, and he has like 1,000 people, and they're all getting in my. I said I had to unfriend my brother. That's so sad.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So,
well, where's this woman live, Aaron?
Who's that?
This
the drummer. I don't even know. But the point is she is so good. Now she's not local, but she is such a phenomenon that she will play, old and different, all kinds of different instruments. And these companies, let's say like a hand pan, or the different. You got the brushes for the drums.
Yeah.
She will they'll provide her with these tools, and she will do a demo. There's even like a little practice pad, and she does all these things, and her grandkids get involved, and it's very inspiring. I'll share it with you. But
that would be useful, because what we did, our singer, we bought her a bongos, and she'll play sometimes on the bongos, but it wasn't a great sound. And she and some other people in the band said, "Why don't we get the snare drum?" And so Steve has another group he's in, which is more advanced than we are. And they lost their bass player. So he drives me over to Green Hill every Wednesday. And we go in this guy, the trumpet player's basement. And we jam. We just jam.
That's awesome.
We're actually going to be performing at the community center in a couple months. No, in June sometime. So they have a really good drummer there. Dave is a barber. He's still working as a barber. Dave and I we'll lock in. Like, I'll be playing Van Morrison Moondance. Boom, 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 boom. And we just make eye contact, and we just rock out, man. So
I think it's great. I think it's great.
I said, "Dave, we want to get a snare drum for our drummer." He said, "Oh." So he goes online. He finds one in the Facebook marketplace. And my wife called him up, because she's on Facebook. And it was over here in Lansdale. Last week we went down, and I bought a beautiful $300 snare drum in great condition for $75.
Awesome.
And so I brought it back, and then my drummer, the barber, tuned it up for me. And then I gave Steve $20. He went over to the music store and bought the brushes. So he's working on that now. So
that's
she'll develop. But anyway, that's our group. And the thing at Folkways, we performed a couple of little things. And people, "When are you going to do a whole concert?" And I'm like, "We could do it right now." But Steve, he's going to high level. He's like, "No, we're not ready. We only know 5 songs." "Oh, come on. We could do Satin Doll. We could do, Lullaby of Birdland." "Well, we got to work on it." So we're going to do in June, but I'm not allowed to announce it yet.
Well, you definitely announce it to me, man. I would like to see that if I would be
All
able
right.
to.
And we'll probably make a video too of the thing.
Yeah. So what comes to mind there, Doug? Now, because you're an interesting guy across the board, in my opinion, and I collect interesting people, man. Like I got you imagine in my practice.
You're kind of a unique character yourself.
I'm a character, so then I attract characters, and I love when they come into my life. So you are one of my most recent, real interesting studies because you're just a cool dude. But I mean, one of my favorite quotes is, "How you do anything is how you do everything." And the reason, and it's kind of like a work ethic thing, right? It's like, the context for a lot of our discussions, and one of the attention getters for me upon meeting you was wrestling. You're a wrestler and a wrestling coach and a competitor for many years yourself. And so I'm going to change our view here.
That's good.
So the viewer can see. But I was looking for an iconic, like, wrestling image, and of course I started looking at, a bunch of stuff came up, the origin of wrestling, Greek origin, and some of the art and things. But this dude is named Andrei Karolin. I believe he's a Russian wrestler. He was a heavyweight, and look at it. I mean, he was people have described him as the most fearsome wrestler, one of the more fearsome wrestlers in a sport of tough customers. He was pretty friggin' fierce. So look at that face. And we're talking about, before we went on live, we talked about some of the grittiness and determination that is requisite in a sport such as wrestling. And so I'm imagining you with some of the stories that you've told me and will share, perhaps, applying that grit and determination and using the wrestler's work ethic. Now, just a little bit of background for the viewer, for the listener. I wrestled in middle school and high school, and I stuck around for a few years. I would later do judo, jiu-jitsu to a degree. And so I've always appreciated the martial way and the martial arts. And wrestling was a sport that, as a young man, it helped me mold my physical, or fine tune my physicality, and also my mind. And so the mental picture and the grittiness and determination that is required to get out there on a mat with only one other competitor.
I love that.
And slug it out, right? So when I say how you do anything is how you do everything, I'm imagining you. I'm thinking about you playing the bass and all the other things you do, and applying that same warrior spirit, that same wrestler's work ethic. And if I may, I'm going to do a screen share for the viewer, because this is awesome attention getter. And I'll let you weigh in on this, my brother. So share screen.
What am I looking for?
Here we go. You're going to see it pop up.
You were doing dips on the pool ladder.
You did that.
You did. My attention that you were doing dips on the pool ladder. It's come to my attention that you were doing dips on the pool ladder.
So that was us. That was us in my office, and the feats of strength that Doug will display are pretty impressive. He's done the squat thrusts in the front. He's done push-ups, very deliberate, very slow, and full form push-ups in my office. And then he was telling me the story. Tell the story about that, Doug, with the dips.
Oh, okay. So when I came here, the same woman, Carolyn, that was the head of the fitness center, she just would, well, we had to be interviewed before you can go to the gym. You have to get a doctor's note. So I got my old doctor before I got the new doctor here. And I got a note, and they said, well, you can go in the pool then when Carolyn interviews you. So I would go in the pool, and I'll tell you another story before I go off.
Yeah.
I hadn't been swimming. So I swam about, I don't know, 20 links. I said, well, that was a nice workout. I was going pretty fast. I can swim. And I go in the gym, in the locker room, and there's a man who is swimming next to me. And this guy is a little bit older than me, and he got polio. And I was lucky because I got that vaccine when they first came out. And I had a friend in elementary school that had polio. He had a big brace on his leg and everything. The guy has one leg is withered up. And I said, Tom, how far did you go today? I went a mile. I'm like, geez, he swam a mile. I swam like an eighth of a mile. I got to step it up. This guy swims every other day, if not every day. He'll swim a mile. That's
impressive.
And, he's got one leg. It's not really helping with the kick. Man, he is tough. I said, I'm inspired. Like attracts like, right?
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll do a half mile every week. I'll do a half mile plus some other stuff. I know if I start creeping up, what'll happen some morning. I don't like swimming. I'm pretty good at it, but I don't like it. It's so boring. It'll be a cold day, and I'll say, I don't want to go at all. That's not what I want. I got to go and do it. It's all mental.
Yes.
So he helped me, and I helped. We're really good friends now. But let's go back to the wrestling. Oh, my God. It helped me so much. Because you saw my little biography. I'm the oldest of 6. And, my little brothers, we would fight. And they didn't mess with me too much because I'm 2 years older than them. But I'm used to that physical contact. But I was so skinny. Now, I'm going to guess about you, Aaron. If you wrestled in high school, you're probably about 150.
Yeah, I think I was one of the reasons why I got out of it was because I was 135 my freshman year and I did pretty well. And then that summer, by the end of that summer, I was like 172 or something like that. So not all that was wrestling quality weight, but I had that growth spurt. So I was like, and the guy that I had to wrestle off against was, I don't know, he was always in contention with state champs. That probably pushing me out of it, but I was just growing at such a rate that I couldn't.
And that's hard.
When you're cheating.
You're wrestling older people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was fortunate because I was working as a lifeguard at the pool. And at the end of the summer, the assistant pool manager was a wrestling coach. We had a party, and we're trying to throw people in the pool. And he tried to throw me in the pool. And I weighed, and I'm not kidding, I weighed 100 pounds. Skinny. I could do like 25 pull-ups. He had trouble. He said, to go out for wrestling. I'd been thinking about it, So when I went out for wrestling, it changed my life because I had, we didn't have the nice technology. I had these big, thick glasses because I'm nearsighted. I'm the smart kid. Kids, they thought me a geek. I ran cross country, well, geeks can run cross country. And I ran the mile and the 2 mile on the track team. Once in a while, they make me run the 400. God, that was hell. On the relay team. And I was like the slowest one on the team. I can do a 55, 56. Nowadays, that's not going to do you anything. But wrestling, all of a sudden, I'm here wrestling at 103. People my own age. Some of them knew what they were doing. And I'm winning matches. And all of a sudden, people looked at me like, hey, he's an athlete. He's a wrestler. And it changed the way I walked, the way I held myself. And I really got into it. And the next year, I was doing pretty well in the swim team in the summer. But the coach says to me, you got to make a choice because it's not just the time. They both take a lot of time. But swimming is like the slow twitch muscles, and wrestling is like your power, your explosion. So I dropped swimming like a hot potato. And I had a pretty good junior year. And so the next year I was going to be captain. Now, let me ask you this, Aaron. So you made that giant growth. Did you ever have to really get involved with the weight cutting? Because that's the worst thing about the sport.
That was kind of it. I knew that if I wanted to be at a competitive weight, I was going to have to cut a lot. And I mean, that was part of the sacrifice. There's probably a lot of reasons. I don't want to make excuses because I truly love the sport and I was pretty good at it. But I stopped wrestling around my sophomore year. Like I said, I never strayed too far from grappling and stuff. But just the 4 or 5 years that I did it steadily, the appreciation I have for the sport and the grittiness and the character beyond the physical, the character that it cultivates, that to be able to stick that out and that man on man combat, really, there's nothing like it. I mean, the confidence it leaves you with, right?
Yeah, you said that earlier. At one point I was playing baseball. We used to play pickup baseball. And I liked it. It was a lot of fun, but I couldn't see very well. I couldn't tell a ball in the strike. But we didn't. I went out for a little league. I made the team because I'm fast and I could play center field. I could catch the ball. But the best play I could do, these guys are throwing the ball fast. They're throwing curveballs. Would be to strike out on a terrible pitch and make it to first base and steal second. And the thing is, I'm out in center field. I went out for JV baseball in college at Hartford just as a lark. And I'm out there in center field, and I'm like, "Oh, look at that cloud! It looks like a bunny." Oh, and you're standing out there, and hey, you can get this guy. He's nothing, and nothing's happening out there. And then you jog in, you sit there on the bench, and you go, "Hey, come on, you hit this ball. Come on, hey, jogging back out to center field." And every now and then a ball would come out there, and I'd start to break in, and then I'd have to run back and make a circus catch.
Right.
It's a great sport and I love it. I'm a big Phillies fan, but it's just not intense enough, I can see now. I appreciate now Pete Rose. That guy, he had a game within the game. He was so intense. And those are the best. And pitching, my God, they got to concentrate so much. If I've been playing maybe shortstop or first base or catcher, oh my God. But out there in the outfield, so for wrestling, you can't say, "Oh, they never passed me the ball." It's like,
right.
It's you. And I tell them when I was coaching, I'd tell the kids, I said, "Look, we're not going to we don't want to hurt anybody. We just want to humiliate them." I'd say, but now look, you want to work hard. You want them to work hard. You don't want to climb a little hill. You want to climb a steep mountain. So you expect them to come after you and you come after them and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about Cale Saunderson at Penn State. He has that intensity, but he tells them it's a game, it's a sport. We want to win the game, and we work hard. But did you see what he did with Carlucci, Carter Starace?
No.
So Carter Starace, I watched some of those games. He was wrestling the last match. This guy's a 3-time national champion at Penn State, which is the national champion. And good kid from Edinburgh. But Carter Starace is working so hard to get a tech fall, which they don't need a tech fall because Edinburgh maybe won one match. At the end of the match, he gets tangled up with the guy and twists the hell out of his knee and limps off, could hardly walk. So here comes, I think it was a week or 2 weeks later, the Big Ten championships. Cale would not let him go. He said, "You're going to qualify even though you don't go to the Big Ten for the Nationals because you're a 3-time champion. You won't get a good seed, but you want to win the championship anyway, so it doesn't matter." So this kid Carter was pissed off because Cale would not let him wrestle in the championships. He goes out in the national championships. Of course, he gets seeded like 9th. I feel sorry for the kid that had to wrestle in the first round. And he's in the finals, wrestling a good wrestler.
Yeah.
He only beat him like, 3-0 or something. And we saw, my buddy and I were watching this video. At the end of the match, they unwrapped his leg. He probably needs an operation. I mean, his knee is shot. And
let's go to a little footage. I just pulled something up. You can give us the play-by-play. Let's see.
Well, he's going up against the freshman Rocco Welsh, who's absolutely been living on by the injury that he sustained.
Carter's
It's not
still
going to be with a bunt.
No.
Yeah, he's going to have to.
I would try to bunt. Somebody had a no hit on.
Look how he pushes in. He's aggressive.
Feel like I'm gonna hit a home run and I'm a bunt.
I see the leg all
I'm gonna do the
wrapped
Babe
up.
Ruth bunt.
Yeah.
We
He's
talk about
stalking him. He's just
Ohio
stalking.
State. They had 7 guys that came to the NCAAs that had no experience.
Now, you know, they changed the rules now.
Right now,
They changed in college and now in high school.
Don't let stress
That you get
become
3 points for a takedown.
These young guys have proven that they can be in a tough situation and still perform.
And here's another thing about Ohio State. You look at Penn State. You look at the
that and Penny.
College wrestling. You look at the seniors.
What was the rule they changed?
You get 3 points for a takedown now.
Okay.
And you know, because, like what Carter would do. Look at this. Oh my God.
And Ohio State has an opportunity.
The guy got out.
They did that year with Kyle Snyder.
But I know Carter does take down.
That's right. They built a really good team.
Maybe not in this
really the start of the transfers.
So Carter will wrestle you. He'll take you down and let you go. So you get a point, and then you got 3 instead of 2.
Angel Rivera reminding Welsh of the 2
Makes,
stall calls against.
look at that. The guy should take Carter down. He gets nothing. Carter gets out of it.
I like that. Angel Rivera very
Oh,
aware there.
Look at that bloody nose. Oh my God. So I want to digress about Dan Gable. So Dan Gable
take 1 second injury
won every match his whole career, 3-time national champion.
He was the 7th.
Lost the last match in the finals of the NCAA. Look at that.
Welsh had his foot.
The Larry Owens from Oregon. And that just pissed off Dan Gable. He worked even harder.
He
to go to the
love
Olympics.
here. No love lost. They're like, hey, bro, I don't care what you try.
That's amazing. But the thing is, Cale Saunderson, they drill at 80%. They don't, like in Iowa, they just beat the crap out of each other, which they're tough. But Penn State is like a family. They really are bonded. And Cale has a perspective. It's like, you know, in life, you want to be intense. You want to go 100%. But you got to learn to lose before you can win. If you're not, I used to be annoyed. There'd be kids that I coached, and they'd look in the newspaper, and they knew how good everybody was wrestling. That's not the attitude you want. I want to see who you got. Who's the best one here? I really pissed my college coach off one time because my sophomore year, we were wrestling Drexel. Harvard School is like a school of 400 guys. Now there's like 1,000. It's co-ed now. And half of them can't chew gum and walk at the same time. And we're wrestling Drexel. They hadn't beat Drexel in 10 years. But we were getting good. And the coach had planned how we're going to beat Drexel. And so I go up to him. He's going to bump me up to 145 and wrestle a decent guy, but I should beat him. And my buddy, who was a freshman, who was a pretty good wrestler, but you could not pin him. He wasn't a stud because he's only a freshman, but you could not pin John. And so he's going to have John go down and wrestle at 135 or whatever it was, 134, the Mid-Atlantic champion, Menser. And right before the match, I go up to my coach and said, "Coach, I can beat Menser. I know I can beat Menser." And so he says, "All right, Ross, go wrestle him." So I go out, and I lose to Menser like 2-1 or 3-1 or something like that. So that's 3 points for Drexel. Then my buddy goes out and loses to the kid that I probably would have beat, like 5-1 or something. He loses to him like 3-0. So that's 3 points for Drexel.
Right.
If we would have traded 3-3, we would have won the match because we lost the match by like 2 points or something like that. But I would rather have a kid like that, like, let me go. Let me have this guy. Let me
have him. Yeah. Give me the opportunity because it makes you better, right?
Yeah.
makes you better to have met that, and that's the thing like that I love about wrestling is that the gauntlet is thrown, man. You are like, we're out there together, and it's like a human chess match, right?
Yeah. When you first went out to wrestle, though, didn't you feel like throwing up
throwing up, terrible cotton mouth, terrible anxiety, and that's one of the things too. I mean, wrestling is obviously it's still a great sport, and there's been an significant increase in girls wrestling now. I see a lot of that, so the sport's raising popularity, but it's kind of it's a little bit of the redheaded stepchild of sports, right? In terms of resources, yes.
Yeah, I used to get pissed off at my school because now I taught in the city. I worked with delinquent girls, and then I end up at Friends Central, the private school. Now they have a pretty good mix of kids, some kids on scholarship or whatever, but I don't think anybody sent their kid to Friends Central to wrestle.
Right.
And I'm not going to have a crappy team. So I'm recruiting kids. I'm Science Olympiad. Here's a little geeky kid. I'm like, hey, did you ever think about wrestling? Why don't you come out, next year in 7th grade? And if you don't like it, give it 2 weeks. God bless you. Go and do something else. And they liked me, and they would come out. I would be in my service group, I would be in my track team or my soccer team. It's like, you're not playing basketball. Well, why don't you come out for wrestling? You're not for the swimming team. Come out for wrestling. And you need every weight. You need chubby kids. You need skinny kids.
Yeah.
And I had some good athletes. I took one kid. He was one of the worst athletes I ever had. I recruited him to come out for my Science Olympiad. Comes out in 7th grade. The first practice, we're drilling. We're doing spinning drill, and he's with a skinny little 8th grader. 85 pounds is this kid's weigh. And this little guy is on the bottom going, ooh, 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 like a mouse.
Yeah.
Like, Ryan, I'm going to turn you into an animal. And by the end of the season, a kid who could do no pull-ups could do like 5 pull-ups. And this kid went on to go out to high school. Now, he wasn't ever a champion wrestler, but he wrestled in high school all the way through, and he won matches. He had a winning season his senior year. You need a kid that's tough, that won't get pinned,
Right.
And then I had other kids that were, well, like this one kid who wrestled like in a club when he was like in 1st grade, but then he burned out. He was the one looking in the paper to see. And I'm like, no, that's not how you approach the sport. So for me, I'm going to tell a story about me. With the weight loss, that was the one time, about the second match, maybe the first match, and I come off the cross country season. What's my body fat? 11% or something? I don't know. And he says, I weigh 120 pounds. That's what you have to weigh. He says, I want you to go down to 112 for Friday's match. I said, why? He says, well, I want to see how you do against the district champion from the Northwood. That was a good school. I said, okay. So I worked out that Monday and went home and had a salad and a piece of meat. Next day, I had peanut butter for lunch, an orange. For dinner, I had an egg. Next day, now I'm cutting back on the food, a carrot stick, and I start cutting back on the water. Thursday, I'm dehydrating. By Friday, I made 112. It was a home meet. And coach is like, you guys have been eating so much stuff before. I want you to go over here. I got this big urn of tea, and you have a cup of tea, then go and eat your sandwich. And so I'm in the front of the line. I get up there. I'm dehydrated. I grab a cup of tea, burn my tongue. Now I can't even eat my sandwich. I go out there, second match. Kid shoots into my leg. put a whizzer on him, crank him onto his back. Before we had video, someone had a Super 8 of the movie of it. This kid is flat on his back. His legs are flipping up and down, but the ref won't call a pin because he's a district champ. And his legs are going up and down, and he's fighting. He's fighting me. He finally gets off the edge after a minute or so. I don't know what happened, but the third period, I noticed his arm was in front of my face. So I opened my mouth. I don't think I bit him, but my teeth were out there. And I got away, and I got off the edge. And we came back, and I ended up losing 7-6 on a point riding time. And then I collapsed and fainted. And my coach is like, okay, I think I killed the goose that laid the golden egg. He said, you're going up to 120. So I go to 120, have a great season, captain the team. I wrestle in the championship for the county. And this is where I really appreciate good coaching. And this coach, he was a phys ed teacher, Ed Burles. What a good man. And so I go out to wrestle this kid who pinned everyone he wrestled. I guess he was sick or something the day I was there because I didn't wrestle him. And I saw this guy. Oh, my God. He had biceps in his ears. And I go out and I lose to him, I don't know, 4-0, 3-0. I get my second place trophy. I'm thinking, okay, I'm qualified for the districts. I'm not, I didn't get pinned. And the coach waited until I calmed down. And then he says to me, you didn't wrestle to win. It's like he spoke to my heart. No, I just didn't want to get pinned. And he and the assistant coach, they said, okay, now remember when the guy squeezed you? And I felt like I was going to throw up. He said, okay, we're going to teach you a move that'll use his strength against you. I was like, okay. So all week long, I worked on this wing roll and practiced. And then I go to the districts. I win the first match, of course. I'm going to meet this guy in the semifinals. I saw him in the locker room before the match, the day before, because we're going to wrestle the next day. I said, it's not going to be the same this time. He said, what you mean? I said, you'll see. I mean, I was cocky. I was planting doubt in his mind.
Right.
So we go out, and on the feet, I'm good on the feet, but you used to be able to stall. And that's the other thing. Now you can't stall on the feet. He got off the edge, almost got him in the fireman's carry, got off the edge, kept backing up. Ref wouldn't call warning, wouldn't call stalling. Second period, I'm on the bottom. He's on top. He starts to squeeze me. Bam! I hit him. 2 and 2. He's on his back. He fights off his back. I rode him out. I end up winning 5-0. The only match my dad ever came to see, I jumped 6 feet up in the air. I go to the finals, handle that guy. I win the championship. It gave me so much confidence. It changed my life. And as a coach, that's what I want for the kids, you know. And I would put them in situations. Before the match, I would have visualizations. You've done that with your judo and your karate.
Yeah.
The mind stuff, right?
Yes, that's tremendous. And I was just thinking as you're talking about, your experiences, and you're going into a little bit into the training, there's physical and mental training.
Yeah.
So the physical training, I mean, I've been through that, but let's break down physical training versus mental training.
Okay.
So what do you do? How do you physically train as an athlete, and how do you focus on them as a coach? How do you train wrestlers best?
Okay. Well, they go hand in hand. You got to do it. And at some point, I'm going to digress into sarcopenia and how old people
overtraining.
Yeah. So with the kids that I coached, So over the Christmas, I would have them show up to the practice, during the holiday. And we'd go out. I don't care if it's like 28 degrees or something. If it was raining or snow, I wouldn't go out. And I would take them out the track. We'd warm up, run a mile at a decent pace. And then have them do 400-meter repeats. You've done those, Aaron, right?
Oh, yeah. Sprints.
You say, okay, I want you to do the first one. You're all fresh. Okay, you're built like a runner. You should do it in like 71 seconds. You're a big guy. We'll let you do, but I want you to try to hit 76. Break 80. You got to break 80. I don't care if you're a heavyweight. Then you get a minute rest. You do another one. You try to hit the same thing. You get another minute. We'll give you a minute and a half this time. Do another one. Now, when I see a kid that goes to throw up, I know I'm doing my job. I say, okay, that's good. We did four or five of them. They're wrestling. They're not doing track. In my middle school, they had, when I stopped coaching both high school and middle school, when I got older, but I'd still go work out with them, high school kids. They had this ridiculous thing on Wednesday. We had a half an hour for sports. Well, by the time the kids come down and change and warm up, they got to go put their clothes back on, go catch the bus. I said, look, everybody, don't even come to the room. I want you to go straight out to the track. Bring your coats, whatever you want. And we're going to run a mile. I don't care. I mean, if it's like 20, below 20 in the windy, maybe we will run up and downstairs. But we're going to run a mile without stopping. If you're in good shape, run it for a good time. We warm up, run the mile. And then I say, okay, go get your bus. When we were getting ready to go against our arch rival, I would say, do you think Shermantown Friends is out here running a mile? No. You remember the third period? You own the third period. That's the mental and the physical,
Connecting the two. Connecting the focusing focusing in the training and putting it in perspective. You're working this hard so that you can own the third period when they're gassed, right?
Yeah. I mean, I got to ask you a question and I'll come back. I saw the video of you guys in that landing craft. You're out in this landing craft.
Yeah.
How much time did you spend in that damn thing?
Sometimes probably the longest was 6 or 8 hours.
Jesus Christ. And you're kind of bopping around out in the ocean.
Well, so the ship to shore stuff took maybe that took a half hour or an hour to be in the water, but then you're up on land, and if you're doing training and God forbid you're in combat, you could be in that thing all day as you're making a mission. Now, obviously they have fuel, capacities and stuff, but they try to get to your objective as quickly as possible. But there was one time where it seemed like we're in that friggin' thing all day. And
I mean, that I have a hard time being in a space like that. I mean, there's you have to do some mental work to be able, and physical, but just mental. I was just like, oh my God. I mean, I know something about it. I have good friends in the Marines, and my cousin's son just finished up from the Marines. It's serious. Well, this guy that won the Olympic boy spud, the guy that won the gold medal, he was in the Marines after that. So it kind of goes hand in hand, the mental.
Yeah.
And I would do, obviously, the pull-ups. You got to get some upper body strength, and I do jump rope is a good thing. At the end of practice when they're tired, then I really just, because you're going to get hurt if you're doing a lot of wrestling. Then I do your workouts, stair steps and leaps and things like that. But the mental, I'd have them do like a mindfulness, how to relax. And I'd say, look, before your match, you're going to be nervous. I'd say, okay, you'll get over it. After my second year of wrestling, I didn't feel like throwing up anymore. I was more excited. You translate into excitement and have them, okay, you're lying here, you're following your breath. Okay, now we're going to go over, you go to the table, you pick up your band, you run out to the middle, you're excited, there's your opponent. I just walk them through the whole thing. Yeah, the guy's going to pick up something. And so then, I'd have them visualize the whole thing.
That's pretty
very helpful.
That's pretty remarkable, Doug. And as I think about that, I'm of course back to my quote, "How you do anything is how you do everything." It makes me feel like in training, in any sort of martial way or any sport, any physical activity, you are training yourself for life.
Yeah.
Because life is like a wrestling match, and if you can train yourself physically and mentally to be resilient and to be anticipating, like, hell, I knew this. I knew that I was going to get into the second period and it was going to be difficult. This guy was going to gas. I knew that I put in extra training in order to increase my stamina. I knew that he was going to try this move that he cuts loose on every opponent, and I was prepared for that with counter, right?
Yeah.
For every move, there's a counter, and for every weakness, there's a strength, and so like I always loved that, the extrapolation of whatever. I mean, like I'll just say this: people who are serious wrestlers that I know, yourself included, a bunch of the guys that I served with, and guys that are still doing things like jiu-jitsu, there is a calm that they have around the ordinary things, like the tasks that would make somebody, even like anxiety doesn't discriminate. It can strike even the strongest of us. And so we need to be prepared for it. But if your life includes doing some really gritty things, some really hard things, then anything else is a piece of cake. Like, I mean, I always felt like, and I've been talking to my Marine buddies about this, I felt like when I got out of the after boot camp, of course, you feel like you're a super soldier. You feel like you're,
yeah. Oh my God.
And that's the whole goal of like that training. It leaves you feeling like anything after that. Like if on my worst day now, I can always reflect back to those difficult times during recruit training and during my time in service, even though that was decades ago, and I can kind of like use that as a strength because, hey, I've done shit before. This is nothing. What am I all stressed out about? This, I'm going to get up there and I have to public speak. I have to do public speaking. I know that's mortifying for many people. That's a very stressful event. One of the most stressful things that a human could ever do, or a job interview. But when you do something like you spend years wrestling or honing your craft in the physical and mental in any activity like a sport, it makes you better as a human being, right? You're more able to meet the challenges of life.
Oh, for sure. When I think about, by the way, I love to talk with your buddy Sandy. I thought that was interesting. A lot of times I'll talk to people from my era about the Vietnam era because that was really transforming. And so for me, originally I volunteered to be a medic while I was 19 years old, and because I'd learned at first when I was in high school, I didn't know anything about it, and I started looking at it. I said, you know what, Ho Chi Minh was our ally, and then we let the French come back and take over the colony, and he was fighting them, and then they were supposed to have an election between the South and the North, but the South, the corrupt dictator Ngo Dinh Diem, reneged on the election, and then we were worried about communism, so Kennedy sent some advisors. And your buddy was right; it was a big mistake. This was not Czechoslovakia and Hitler, okay?
Right.
So we got over there, and the one thing I disagreed about was that, because I ended up, when I was 19, I thought, you know what, I'm not gonna. If we had an army and it was Hitler, I'd be there. And if in this case, I'm not going to go and support this corrupt dictator. The Buddhists are burning themselves in protest, But so if I'm not going to kill him, where am I going to have to be a medic? So I sent this thing to the draft board, and some angel, because I'm an idiot. I'm like 19 years old. I'm like, I wonder what a war is like. I wonder what a jungle is like. I'll learn a trade. I'll learn how to be a medic. It's like they said, leave us alone. You have good grades. You're in a good school. And that's before they got rid of all the deferments and stuff, which was really not fair. The people that didn't go to college. So they're like the fodder when they start ramping up,
Right.
Not a fair situation at all. And I always felt really angry when people were treating the soldiers badly. And I was protesting war. Someone's going to burn a flag. I'm like, what the hell? I'm out of here. It's like, why would you do that? It's like, are you trying to convince someone to join you? No, you're an asshole. So it was like all that terrible stuff was happening. By the time I graduated and the prefrontal cortex knitted together and I'm married, I'm like, whoa, what am I going to do? Well, they came out to Harvard College and they said, if you come and work at the worst schools in the inner city, you get a deferment while you're there. You have to take some classes at Temple. I said, okay. There were 12 guys that signed on to that program. By Christmas, me and one other guy were left. And I say it was because of my experience going through hard times as a wrestler. I was able to, and also being a big brother, I knew how to manage little kids, how to do crowd control.
Mm-hmm.
These people had no idea. And I have to say, I would take the train, get off at 52nd Street, walk down to this school, James Rose Elementary at 50th and Parrish, and I never had a problem except I got attacked one time. I was teaching to mostly disturbed kids, and these two boys were picking with each other the whole day. And I'm not going to tolerate just craziness. We're not going to fight in my classroom. So finally I said, okay, look, you guys, I'm sick of this. You get this punishment, had various things they had to do for punishments, but after school, you're going to have a fair one. I'm going to let you fight for like a minute and just beat the tar out of each other or whatever. So I'm out there standing in front of these two guys, and they're, how boys are. Not like the girls. The girls hurt each other, hurt you. They're like jumping around, weaving around, letting once in a while they swing. They don't even make contact. And some guy comes from my left side. I didn't even see him. And sucker punches me. And he says, why you let them fight? Of course, I'm this honky. I'm the white guy. And, these black kids. And I'm in this black neighborhood. And and I used my wrestling. And I got behind him. I put him in a 2-on-1. I calmed him down. And later on, this guy, one of the kids said, that was Mr. Ross. He's cool. And we became friends later on. But I was able to, and I love Aikido because it's about how you calm the people down, calm the situation down. And the other time, I was in the old building. We had no security. And every morning, all these kids would be running around. And I'd go out and say, get out, get out. And, I know what happened. When I had the emotionally disturbed kids, I'm in the back of the room, sitting with a reading group. And some kid comes in my classroom. I look up and he's picking with one of my kids, doing their math problems at the desk. I only have 9 kids. I was so mad. I go and grab this 12-year-old, take him back to his room. I said, this boy was out in my classroom. The teacher was totally ineffective. The boy starts cursing me out. I went off. I lifted this kid up, yelled at my friend, watch my class. I go to the other building, go to the principal's office. The principal calmed me down. The next morning, I see this boy with his 2 older brothers, and they attack me with a 2x4. I backed into the room, got the biggest kid, he was 16 years old, and put him in a 2-on-1, used him as a shield. I never got hit with a 2x4. They just wanted to show them, they were protecting their little brother from the honky. And I'm like, hey, you made your scene, get out of here. And they run away laughing. I pressed charges on these little brats. And the thing is, Aaron, they never got in trouble. They didn't have a record. They didn't have a record. But what they would do is they would take these older boys and move them from one school to another. So I'm there with it was a referee, not a regular judge. And the mother's there, oh, my boys have never been in trouble, blah, blah, blah. And so I said, look, I don't want to create a big problem for the rest of their lives, but they need to be held accountable. And they got to come in my room. They got to clean my refrigerator and clean up the wood shop. And, I got some work for them to do, and I want them to apologize to me. So, we got that handled. But I'm telling you, the wrestling, I probably would have been those other 10 guys. I can't do this. I got to get out of here.
Yeah. What it brings to mind, Doug, is this brings to mind the 2-on-1 you're talking about. And I mean, so for the viewer, what that is correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, you're behind somebody and you do
like a arm drag to get behind.
And you got two hands on their forearms. So you're behind them and you come underneath. You kind of like holding one arm. So you can control somebody like that, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So it makes me think of, like, again, the way of the warrior, and you train to fight, like all the old martial arts isms before mixed martial arts came in. You train to fight so you don't have to, like, you're also referencing the Vietnam conflict, and we have the ability, as wrestling is probably the beginning of the martial arts. Two individuals grappling, trying to gain physical advantage over one another, whether it's pinning or throwing or whatever. You're trying to dominate that other person physically. And so it's a great skill to have, and a very practical skill, because the most stressful situation a human could ever find themselves in is a human on human confrontation.
Yeah.
So to be comfortable with your physicality and be able to defend yourself is a wonderful thing, but it also comes with a huge responsibility, right? We're not going off and, teaching everybody martial arts or wrestling so you can go kick everybody's ass.
Right. I hate bullies. I really have a problem with bullies.
Yeah.
Probably why I wanted to wrestle, because I was a skinny little kid.
Yeah. So it's indispensable in terms of physical and mental growth and confidence. But, as you talk about, and many of my, the vast majority of my conversations I've had so far have been with people who my fellow servicemen and women and stuff like that. So, something I always think about is, like, I love to train to fight and, employ my weapon system and function as part of a well-oiled machine. But with that came the responsibility of being able to de-escalate. I think that's one of the things that people is often not included in the martial arts, or in any sort of consideration. We're talking about a confrontation, is like the ability to de-escalate, to use that confidence to not bludgeon somebody or physically humiliate or destroy them, but to be able to defend yourself, but also to be able to have enough confidence to say, you know what, we're going to end it there. You don't have to hit me in the head with a 2x4, because if you do, then I'm going to have to kill all you guys. You know what I mean? So I think about that a lot, the yin and the yang of it, and the responsibility. Like, if you make yourself a tremendous warrior, like Sun Tzu said, the art of learning to fight so you don't have to fight, winning without fighting, without a confrontation, is something that, especially in this crazy world today, it seems more and more needed.
Oh my God. And that's very well said. Very well said, Aaron. And I just wanted, I did really like, I got involved with Aikido because I like that philosophy of helping the other person center. It might be having them flat, but you get them centered. You're not, when they approach you, use their energy against them. And I had one kid that got so into that. I would teach like little Aikido things that when he graduated from college, he went to Japan in Okinawa and became a Aikido master. It's like, wow. But, and you remind me when you're talking about that of a really good friend that I made in the last few years. So the last years when I was coaching, I had a lot of kids out. 25 kids. That's for small schools. That's pretty good. My assistant coach is an African American kid from West Philadelphia, and I was his advisor in 8th grade. And he made it through school. He was not well prepared for Friend Central, but he worked hard. But I remember one time when he was my advisee, his grandmother took care of him and his brother and sister because the parents were in jail for drugs. She said, Fernando will not come to school. He's not sick. This is like February. I said, okay, I have a free period in another bit. I'm going to drive down. I'll pick him up, have him ready with his bag and hair combed and everything. So I come down there and he said, well, I didn't do my English and Mr. Sabado's going to yell at me. I said, Fernando, 80% of success is just showing up. You just got to be there, take the consequences, you'll be fine. So this kid became my assistant coach after, he graduated. He made 1 year of college and then he was in between jobs. And he was tremendous. But then he went off and got a job up in Detroit. I had no assistant coach with all these crazy kids. And the kids that come out for wrestling are crazy.
Yeah.
So I kept bugging the AD and I couldn't find anybody. So we had a new guy that had retired from being a state police trooper, Tom McDaniel, salt of the earth. He was working out in Reading, but his wife was working in the city. So they moved in and he thought he would take this job head of security. And they hired him. And, of course, as a state police, you got to do some judo. And he'd wrestled in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, oh, man, this guy's he's 50 years old. The kids miss the young buck and the old head, They'll miss Fernando. But Tom got my program. He saw how we created a family and how the kids support each other and how I empowered the captains to take leadership. And we became really good friends. He's been out here to see me. We have lunch together all the time. And he tells me about situations when he was he did investigations, all the situations, and he would sometimes he had to use it.
Right.
But he's the kind of guy that would walk into a situation and 99% of the time he would get it all calmed down. That's what we're here for in this planet, Sometimes
cooler heads prevail, you know what I mean? It's I feel like there is a tendency, when you're doing something like wrestling and you're physically and mentally strong, there's a tendency to want to exercise that power. But controlling, like we've seen in cinematic portrayals of whatever, could be friggin' Bloodsport or whatever kind of movie with the martial art, the Karate Kid or whatever, like you have that power, you can go out and you can abuse it, you can throw people around, bully people, kick their ass, or you can use it for good to help people, to prevent, because you have such confidence and such power, you need to have discretion the way you apply that. And so for that reason, I always felt like a great accompaniment to being strong is to be compassionate and to be thoughtful and to try to help, and that's one of the things that I think about a lot, because I basically went from in the Marine Corps.
Now you're helping people. I mean,
I was a grunt, so
people.
I was a berserker in the Marine Corps. That was what we were trained to do, to locate and close with the enemy. And I got to such a everything was like, it was the pursuit of becoming an alpha male. And I feel like, to do that is to be at the apex of that, like what it means to be a tough, strong, masculine guy. And then I got to that point and I'm like, you know what, this is pretty cool. I don't feel like I need to be like that. I'm gonna be a little sensitive, now I'm gonna try to use this for good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I said, that was a big guy. And I kind of went back into my old, when I was like in high school and college, even when I was in my 20s, I had this thing about I look at somebody, and I have friends. I had a friend who was my best friend, was 6'5". They used to make fun of him. He was my roommate. They had like 4 black kids in our grade in my class in Harvard, and he was my roommate. And they made fun of him. They said, "Ray Garrett, 6'5" and can't dunk." I mean, it's ridiculous. And I would look at somebody like that and say, "I could beat you." There's something wrong with that. And I've done a lot of work on myself to realize how screwed up that is, you know? And
well, it's a competitive spirit, but I mean, like, you did put me in an arm bar on my chiropractic table.
But you know, when I see someone that I know is has like a same mentality, like my best friend, we would go over to his house and we would wrestle in the living room until our wives stopped us. We started, his kids were wrestlers. He had 2 boys, and we would be wrestling in the living room. We're like 40 years old, and they got pissed off at us.
Yeah.
But it's just, I loved it because, like, when I was wrestling, once I got over to being nervous and knowing I was good, I used to like to trick people. Like, I would look at my shoe like I was going to tie my shoelace or something, and then grab the guy's leg. Dumb enough to fall for that,
Right.
And when I was in college, if I would have known how bad Haverford was, I never would have gone there. It was a good school and good reputation and had good courses. I wanted to take a lot of sciences and stuff, but they hadn't won a match in 3 years. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that was good, the year before me, they brought in a couple of wrestlers that were decent. And my year, they brought in 7. And me and another guy were really good. And we got a new coach. And the coach was from Lehigh. And that was the team to beat at the time. The best college team, really. And he grew up in Bethlehem. So, of course, he loved wrestling. He was a lightweight, Fritz. He graduated and got a doctorate in math. He mostly wrestled JV, a few varsity matches when someone got hurt for a really good team, but he loved wrestling. And so he's teaching math at Villanova and coming over to Harvard and coaching us. And he was so enthusiastic that you couldn't help but just love. Those are my best friends, the people on the team,
Mm-hmm.
And I just had so much fun. And then the next year we brought in a couple more. So we would wrestle anybody. We would go to Penn. We would go up to Lehigh and work out with Lehigh. I'm wrestling the Eastern champion, taking him down, and then he's holding me down. We're going at it. But I just liked, and the other guy who was 160 pounds, he was undefeated my senior year. I was undefeated my senior year. And our 180 pounder was undefeated. We only had like 14 matches or something, but I would go home and try to figure out, how can I beat this 160 pounder? I cut myself down to 130 very gradually. And I would say, oh, I'll do this. And it might work one time. But it's a mental sport. You have to be smart and you have to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am at Folkways now. And I know that, according to the research, you can tell me if this is true or not, I see anywhere between 3 and 8% of our muscle mass you lose every year above 30 or 40 years old.
Yeah.
Is that about right? 30.
Yes. Yeah, so you used the term earlier, sarcopenia, right? Which is basically like that's age-related lean mass loss. So you lose your skeletal muscle. It's replaced often by adipose tissue, by fat.
Well, but now the research is showing, and which I kind of expected, that if you do resistance training and some other, do decent walk and do cardio, it doesn't go like that.
Right.
And if you lose your strength, then you're going to lose your leg strength, and you're going to fall, and you're going to break something, and it's all downhill.
Yeah, your balance, your strength and balance are kind of coupled like that, So I see it all the time, and that's one of the things that really made me want to have a conversation with you, man. Because as I referenced before, I showed the video you doing those dips and those other feats of strength. There's not a lot of people that I know that are your age that are. I mean, you're in the, I don't know, you're in the top 1%. You're at the top of that pyramid, so is that from your being? Is that genetic? Is that nature, nurtured, both?
Well, it's both, but I think more nurture. It's more because I have this mentality. I know how to train. I used to wrestle, the kids, and I stayed in shape, and I go to the gym. And my problem is that I do too much. I've had to learn, like this time when I hurt my back, and you saw me when I came in so badly.
Yeah.
And found out that I was doing back extensions, which I shouldn't be doing. But, I work really hard. I'm up to 12 pull-ups or chin-ups, either one. And I do it every day or every other day at least. And then I do some push-ups, and I do some weights. And I do those thrusts, You got to do a little intense cardio. 5 minutes of intense cardio every day is enough. And if I can support you in teaching older, and I'm talking older people, 40, 50 years old, get started. I mean, I know you do with your drill group.
Yeah.
If we can get people, you don't have to. My mom is 102 years old. Now she's really, she's ready to go, and she tells me it's hard to do things, and we're prepared, and she's prepared, but she's still in independent living. We're finally talked her into getting some assisted living. So yeah, it's got to be some nature too. I'm very fortunate.
Well, it's extraordinary. The aspect of it can be taught, can be coached, and I know that that you didn't. I'll share the story you told me about that. You mentioned the pool and your guy who with polio who does the mile and inspired you, but you were at the top of the ladder coming out of the pool, and you do these dips, tricep dips, and so you got kind of like shamed for that because like, hey, are you supposed to be doing that? Safety. And so it's kind of like the wrestler in you is my impression when you go into the gym when everybody else is like doing really nice and easy, nice and slow, very safe sort of stuff, appropriate to a fitness level and an age, but you are defying age and, you still possess tremendous strength. I mean, honestly, Doug, it's been a while since I did a pull-up. I mean, I could probably knock out, I'd be surprised if I could do 12 dead hangs. And I'm 49 years old, former Marine. I've done, fitness has been my entire life. It would, that's extraordinary. And that is, I know that is like a wrestler sort of training. I mean, that we talk about muscle strength. If you've been there, everybody talks about muscle memory. So if you've done something in your life physically, if you lifted weights, if you ran track, if you were a wrestler or a soccer player, despite your age, if you train similar skills, your body remembers, your nervous system will remember and will respond. If you do it in a safe enough manner, you can train hard at any age.
I like what you're saying, and it's my philosophy. And the nervous system, that's what I'm learning. It's the key. It's not so much like when I'm doing these. So what I'm doing now, I used to do upside down handstand pushups.
Yeah.
But when I hurt my back, to do that, you have a certain amount of extension that you're doing, which puts pressure.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing them. So I take now a 20-pound kettlebell. I hold it in one hand, and I do. First, it was 10. I have a little bit of impingement in the shoulder, so I massage it every day.
Yeah.
Now I'm 15. But what I do is I do it sitting down and lock my feet around the chair, and then I tighten up all the core muscles around that area that the spondylolisthesis is. And I can tell that the muscles are now helping protect it, but the nervous system is also learning this is okay. We don't have to go into spasm. And each time I do this, every single night I do that exercise, it's getting better.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome. And also, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll be 77 years old here in a couple of months,
77 years old. So that's extraordinary. And it's really the exception to what you find out there. I mean, one of the things that I heard recently described on a podcast that it was a very simple, lay-friendly explanation. It said people that are fit they walk literally with a spring in their step.
Yeah.
They have a bounce to them. Whereas you see, as we get older, a lot of people are kind of shuffling around, not really using their physical body as well. And although all anatomy declines currently all anatomy is seen to decline towards when we become seniors, we can do there's a lot that we can do physically and mentally that are indistinguishable from the type of training that you had done as a wrestler in the wrestling room and doing your workouts and stuff like that. You can do that throughout your life. You might have to modify things and pull the reins back on yourself a little bit so you don't get hurt, but you can train quite safely with strength training, with cardio. And if we don't do it, we're screwed. Like, we got to do it, man.
And you can start, I mean, you don't have to have been an athlete like me. You can start where you are, and it can be, my wife is now doing chair yoga, and it's really good for her.
Yeah.
And I can't tell her what to do. It's like when you're close to someone like that.
Well, she's a doctor.
Yeah, well, also because, when you grow up with somebody and you live with them all these years, you're like, yeah, that's you and I'm me. And, but the doctor told her, I know you broke your wrist a while ago, but now it's time to, and now she's doing it. And I encourage her. And, she's not doing the crazy stuff I'm doing. Now, I like to do with the mountain climbers, I'll do like a 30-second or a 20-second burst. And then 10 seconds of leaps, just leaping straight up in the air. And that's strengthening all those hip muscles. And when your glutes and your hips are working, takes pressure off the lower back.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? One of the things that I often consider, I teach anatomy, and, one of the things about skeletal muscles is they're spring-like. They dampen forces. And so we use them for strength and speed and stuff, but they're really almost like shock absorbers. And so when you're working your physical body, your muscles respond and your nervous system responds in such a way to add that bounce and to buffer the forces of gravity and all these other activities that we do. It makes things easier so we can retain our range of motion. We can reduce our pain. Also, motion is lotion. Motion turns off pain. That's basically, that's the basis of physical therapy. Chiropractic is that. So we got to move, man.
Well, before I go, I just want to acknowledge you and just thank you for taking on, doing all the training you had to do to learn how to help people and also to bring your philosophy and your love of people. It's clear, and everyone's different, and you need a supportive, positive environment, which you certainly have created. And that Emily is awesome. I mean, just you come in there and it's like you're greeted by this lovely young woman, and then there's this old guy back there kicking ass. It is a great feeling to come in.
Yeah, man.
You help me. I know I need to heal, and sometimes I massage these muscles that I'm working so hard every day. I do a self massage, but I know I'm going to do a tune up with you every month.
Yeah.
I appreciate
it's great to take care of you, man. It's an honor to take care of you, and I appreciate you sharing your story this morning. And what a beautiful day, Doug.
I'm out here in the sun. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, man. I appreciate the conversation with you, and keep being gritty, man. Get that 3-point takedown.
I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Take care, brother.
Bye-bye.